Is the WNBA heading to WWE style? You might think that's a wild idea, but after seeing Alyssa Thomas knock Caitlin Clark to the ground, fans are starting to ask the tough questions. This raises the question, is this just plain basketball or is there another direction? That time, when Alyssa Thomas tried to screen for Caitlin Clark, she nearly knocked her off her feet. It is not surprising that Clark reported this stall to the referees right after his turn. But wait for it, this is where it gets a little fun. This is not one play that we are talking about here. This is about the future of the WNBA and the safety of its up-and-coming players. A variation on this line of reasoning is, what if Clark gets seriously hurt? If other young players may start and stay away from the league, then it will be a big blow to it. This may eventually cause a negative chain reaction which would deter potential talents from joining the WNBA. Well, you may be asking yourself as to the causes of this development, or what more can we expect from the WNBA if nothing will be done? This is an interesting political relationship. Let us take a closer look at it further. Is it racism, jealousy, or something else? Clark has been extraordinary on the court that he or she has broken records, attracted numerous views, and become the figure of the league in such a short time. Still, the bigger she becomes, the more she receives all kinds of vehemence against her. Some of the fans and analysts now are beginning to wonder whether there is any form of racism or homophobia in play. Will Caitlin Clark continue to be punished for being a young, steroid-pumped fitness blonde bottle born a woman in a league mainly composed of blacks and queer folks? In fact, Caitlin Clark didn't merely join the WNBA, she revolutionized it and changed it for the better. Her high scores, her impact on a tendency of attracting new fans, provoked not only audience and spectators, but some experienced players who were gradually building their careers on sport. This shift of focus has earned her resentment, as some of the players feel that she has been promoted unfairly and promoted at a very short period of time. The goal to be more dominant on the court, it appears that some have turned into being more hostile and maybe even reckless on the field. With each outing, Caitlin Clark is not only playing for victories, but also for the increasing bigness of a target on back. Toughness is inherent in basketball, and performing physical plays is acceptable, but the way it is done here by him towards Clark was borderline. In situations like this, and Bass in the games that we have witnessed this season, Clark has been a mercy recipient in every game. Some plays are hard-hitting, and then they begin to seem more like efforts to sack her literally and in meaning of other things in life. Not only basketball fans, but even athletes like LeBron James stand up for Clark, and at the same time for WNBA, recognizing the potential of this woman and burden which she has to bear. He also stressed that Clark should only immerse on having fun while enjoying the struggles and other forms of hostility. However, as fans, we can afford not to look the other way and not comment on what is going on. On the one hand, we may have seen that Clark's performance is excellent in her work, but on the other hand, she is in a very risky situation. It is rather unpleasant to admit, which some analysts have mentioned, not to speak of. They have dwelled on it. This means that Clark could be facing hostility from black players as well as lesbian players, knowing well they have no reason not to tolerate her just because she is talented. She is a Catholic, and in a heterosexual relationship, therefore she does not fall under the LGBT+ group that is more prevalent within the league. Is this bleeding into some of the aggression and antagonism that she encounters on the tennis court? Is this level of physicality meant to deter her and prevent her from overpowering him and changing the entirety of the game? For instance, Jason Whitlock wrote about her predicament, likening it to Larry Bird when it comes to NBA. Like Bird, Clark may well be suffering from racism in her team, and given that NBA is a society intensely focused on issues of social politics and identity, this is something that may be at play here. What is even more, and more disgusting, is the absence of any reaction on the part of the WNBA. That is why it must be recalled that even though it is obvious that Clark is being targeted with dangerous play, nobody in the league has spoken out. This silence speaks volumes. If the WNBA does not resolve these issues, it stands to lose more than Clark's career. The growth of the league will also be at stake. It is clear that fans are observing and, at many instances, fuming in disapproval. The fans are not happy with how Clark is being handled, especially in social media platforms, and the WNBA needs to catch up to what she is doing for it to maintain the momentum it has created. While Caitlin Clark's ascent to the status of fame has been helpful for the WNBA, it likewise made her vulnerable. Her presence is boosting the league like never before, which is good, but it is at the same time creating focus on her back. The greater Caroline's successes are, the more some of her opponents appear to be trying to undermine her efforts using all sorts of permissible and even subterranean strategies. Now let's not overlook on the commercial activities of the business. The WNBA would, with the help of Clark, be in a very big trouble. The fans would be devastated should Caitlin Clark get involved in a very serious accident. It losing its biggest star would undermine the credibility of the league and reduce viewership and further possibly deter the other young talent. This would affect the game in that companies associated with the sport through sponsorship stand to be affected as well as media coverage. But here's where things get really exciting. Sadly, though this is the reality, and surprisingly enough, you, the fans, have the power to transform this adverse reality. To be clear, the WNBA listens to its fan base more than you may think, and the league stands at an interesting crossroads. We create the league in every tweet, every post, and every comment that is made and contributed to the conversation. Hearing what they want, fans can work for better definition of trading rules and severe punishment for violence. You need to challenge the league to protect its talent and maintain the game as one that is played on innovation and not brutality. That is not to safeguard one player. It's about how the trend is set within a league of sport. So, when we campaigned for better protection for players such Caitlin Clark, we are equally helping in ensuring that other players are protected. What we are telling the next generation is that they can not only survive in WNBA, but can also succeed. And yet, Caitlin Clark is making history, in part, while simultaneously putting herself in harm's way. This is an area that the league must come up to, and the fans have the influence to bring the change in the league. Let it not be true that the future of women's basketball will be fueled by dangerous action and biases of the referee. Well, are you ready to act in the interest for the future of the WNBA to continue? What you have to say has more impact than you can possibly imagine. Now is the time to shout and to ensure that the league understands this is not acceptable any longer. But here is the real question. What type of future do you envision for the WNBA? Do you want Caitlin Clark and others like her to excel or to be hindered by dangerous play and questionable officiating? You have the power, but too many sit quietly. So if you want fair competition, if you want the very best to shine, then hit that like button, share this video, and put your comments below.